Okay, happy Monday, everyone. Happy Champagne Trivia Monday. Really excited about this episode of Monday FunDay Trivia. Today we have Peter Marks with us, and he is going to. I think he has some tough questions in this deck. So before we get to that, I did want to make a couple of announcements. One, we do have a couple of free webinars on champagne. The styles of mastering the styles of champagne, wine styles of champagne, if you will. And those will be June 30th and July 17th. I'm going to go ahead and put the link here in the comments section. They are free. They are packed full of information, so you'll definitely want to sign up for that. And the great news is when you do sign up for those webinars, you'll also have the opportunity to enter into a contest that the Champagne Bureau and Napa Valley Wine Academy are running as well. And you can check that out at the link that I provided here in the chat box. More on that at the end of the show as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Peter up on screen. Hey, Peter.
Hello, Christian. How are you?
Good. You ready for
Good.
stumping some
definitely
people
ready.
on champagne?
I hope you're all sitting there with a glass of champagne in your wherever you are, and enjoying this wonderful afternoon here in Napa. It's a gorgeous day, and it's always a great day to drink champagne. So we do have some tough questions today. We'll see if
Oops, I might have lost you here, Peter. Let's see if you come back. Well, if not, I do have the deck, so I can start running. There you are. You back with me?
yeah,
Okay,
I'm back. Yes,
you're back. Okay, great. So should I switch on over to the deck and we'll get rolling?
sure. Let's go right ahead.
Okay. So I will let everyone know that I will be playing Jeopardy music in between the questions so that you have time to consider your answer. When the music stops, Peter will go ahead and reveal the right answer. So Peter, over to you.
All right. Thank you. Well, here we go. Let's go to our very first question. We have 20 questions today, so hopefully you'll be able to keep with us. We're not going to keep track. It's all up to you. So our first question is,
Okay. Let me.
approximately how many bubbles are in a bottle of champagne? So how many bubbles? I've never counted them myself, but and I'm not sure anybody has. So this is an estimate. Is it 5 million, 25 million, 50 million, or 5 billion? Think about that. I guess you could count the bubbles in a glass and then multiply that out, but that might even be a little difficult to do.
Okay.
So
Time's up, and
and
go
the
ahead.
answer is,
Let's see here. We're getting some answers in here. Okay,
there
we
we
have
go.
people.
5 million. Okay,
Yeah.
I see a few of those.
So here we go with the answer, Peter.
50 million. Somebody said 50. Robert, good job. Yes, it is approximately 50 million. Now, I've actually seen a range of between 30 to 60 million, so that's a safe number. In any case, that's a lot of bubbles, and that is important to the production of champagne as a secondary fermentation. And you can imagine how much CO2 those yeasts are giving off to create all those tiny bubbles. So very good. We're off to a good start. So our next question has to do with an important part of the champagne bottle, and that is, what is the wire cage called that covers and secures a champagne cork in place? Is it a caboulot? Is it a cageot? Is it Maillard? Or is it a mousselet? And by the way, whenever you loosen that wire cage, you should always keep your hand on the top of the cork and the wire cage. Never take the wire cage off when you're opening a bottle of champagne, because once you loosen that, it could let the cork shoot out at any time. So it's always important to keep a grip on the cork so that it doesn't accidentally escape and possibly hit somebody, which we never want that to happen.
Okay, so we have
See
people.
a lot of D's, couple C's and A's. Nobody went with Cajo, I guess. Yeah. Okay, you're right. I made that one up. The answer is mousselet. So mousselet, it's a name, by the way. It derives from the French word for muzzle. And as you can imagine, we're muzzling the cork in place here, which is something that's, again, important to do. All right, thanks for that. And now we'll go on to our third question. This is something that's a little bit topical now, given that we're all going through some different types of climate change around the world. What is the average temperature increase for Champagne over the last 30 years? So is it 1 degree Fahrenheit, 2 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 degrees Fahrenheit, or 10 degrees Fahrenheit? Again, this would be the average increase overall in the last 30 years. I'm seeing a lot of D's and A's coming up so far. There's a C in there.
Okay.
Hey, ready to do the answer?
Let's do it.
This might be surprising. It's only 2 degrees Fahrenheit. And again, this is over the last 30 years. In fact, between 1940 and 1980, during that 40-year span, there was actually a decrease in temperature. So only in the last 30 years have we begun to see an increase. Now, a lot of people think this is bad, but think about it. There are some advantages to this. Number one, there's less risk of frost. And it can possibly also make it a little easier for the growers to comply with some of the very strict champagne regulations. And by the way, we'll talk about that in the upcoming webinars. Temperatures are expected to increase over the next 10 years by 0.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Not a lot, but it is increasing. And we'll talk a little bit more. I'll have some other questions that will probably relate to this so-called temperature change in a moment. But for now, it's just 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, our fourth question. This one we'll have a little fun with. Marilyn Monroe once took a bath in 350 bottles of champagne. True or false? And I must say, that picture is probably not the bottle of champagne that she took, if she did indeed. It looks like bubble bath to me. And the question is coming to an end.
That would be one expensive bubble bath.
I was just going to say that, yeah. Especially if she's using something like Dom Perignon. You never know. And I see a lot of people believe this is true. Are you ready to reveal? Indeed, it is true. It is at least reputed to be true. I don't know if anybody was there watching this, but there's enough people who've claimed this to be true. And why not make it true? It sounds like a great story. Again, a good waste of champagne at the same time. Okay, our fifth question. This has to do with service. And the question is, you should always polish a champagne glass immediately before serving. Is this true or is this false? And obviously you can see somebody there polishing a glass with preferably a lint-free cloth to dry. That's very important. But is it true that you should always do it, or is it false that you should always do it right before serving? So a couple people think it's false. Somebody thinks it's true. You only have a 50-50 chance of getting it wrong, so give it a shot.
Okay. Ready for the
answer?
answer?
Is false. And the reason this is false is that when you buff a glass, and this could be any glass, but it's particularly champagne glass, it builds up static electricity. And the static electricity will kill the bubbles. And obviously, part of the beauty of drinking champagne is to see the bubbles effusing from the glass. So static electricity will negate that. And because of this issue, you want to buff your glasses at least 4 hours before service, so you avoid any of that static electricity. All right, another little fun culture question here. What famous French fashion house once made a perfume called Champagne? Is it Chanel, Hermes, Louis Vuitton, or Yves Saint Laurent? And as you know, this is not allowed. Nobody should be using the name Champagne. Only the people that make champagne in the region of Champagne. And the Champagne brewer has gone to great lengths to protect their name because it is important. We'll we'll talk about that in the webinar as well. But which one of these houses made a perfume, as you can see there in the bottle?
Okay.
And this was in 1993, by the way, when they did this. And the answer is Yves Saint Laurent. And you can see there at the bottom of the right-hand picture there, you've got a little Yves Saint Laurent at the base of the package. Now, they still make this type of perfume. It's under another name, which escapes me at the moment, but you can still buy the same perfume, but certainly not with the name Champagne. All right. Thank you. And on to number 7. In making champagne, what does the word reserve mean? Is it the best wine made by the producer? Is it the underground cellars where the champagne wines are aged? And, in the Champagne region, they have these cellars that are carved out of the limestone. Or is it wine that is blended with sugar to top off the bottle before it goes into the final corking and bottling takes place? Or is it wine kept in reserve from previous years for blending? And I see a number of people that are getting this one. Looks like they might be onto what this is. Maybe not one of the more difficult questions. And the answer is, it is indeed wine kept in reserve from previous years for blending. Now, this is really important because, as you know, Champagne is still a cool continental climate. And because of that, we need to have wines from previous years to maintain the consistency of style and also make up for any uneven years where the quality might not be as good as they wish. So they must keep some wines in reserve for future years to create a beautiful wine and blend it all together. All right. Question number 8 about the grape Chardonnay. So what does Chardonnay contribute to champagne wines? Is it the finesse? Is it the power? Or is it roundness? Finesse, power, or roundness? And champagne can have all of those. So which one of those is contributed from the Chardonnay grape? It looks like we got a lot of people getting this one correct. It is indeed finesse. There we go. Yeah, so finesse is the right answer. Chardonnay provides really good acidity, some tart green apple flavors as well. Pinot Noir is more known for the power. It provides a little bit backbone and structure, along with a red fruit, like a red apple character. And then the other main grape that's grown in Champagne, the Meunier grape, tends to give you sort of that roundness and easy drinkability. So Chardonnay is known for its beautiful finesse. In fact, some of the champagnes that are going to be aged the longest will hopefully have a good proportion of Chardonnay, because Chardonnay does really contribute to the longevity of the blend. Question number 9. What is a vintage champagne? Is this the best wine made by the producer? Is it a classic style of champagne made entirely by hand? Is it wine destined to age for many decades? Or is it wine made from grapes of a single year? So what is the definition of champagne vintage? Or should say vintage champagne? A lot of smarty pants out there today, Christian. I can see some good answers coming through.
Yeah, we have some smart Facebook fans.
Yeah, we do. They haven't drunk too much champagne because they can answer correctly so far. All right, it is indeed the wine made from the grapes of a single year, and it must be 100% of that vintage. And in fact, if you're a producer that makes both a non-vintage and a vintage, even in a really good year when you want to make a vintage champagne, only up to 80% of your crop can go into a vintage. And they want you to keep at least 20% back from that excellent year that you might want to use for blending for the reserve wines that can make up for the lesser years. And generally, a producer will make a vintage champagne maybe 3 or 4 years on average out of 10. So it's not something you see every year as you might in other parts of the world. Okay, so we're coming up to the halfway point here with question number 10. Now, because of the cool climate, champagne always completes malolactic fermentation to naturally reduce the acidity. Is this true or is this false? As I'm sure many of you know, or if you don't know, malolactic fermentation converts malic acid into lactic acid. And during that conversion, it reduces the overall acidity. And this is a way that you could reduce the acidity in a cool climate, such as champagne. Now, is this always done? Question, yes or no, true or false? Good answers coming through again. And the answer is indeed false. In fact, it's done even maybe a little less now than it has been in the past, because if things, as they are slightly getting a little bit warmer, you want to retain the acidity. You don't want to reduce it if it's already at the right balance. So nowadays, it's not always done, but it can be done. And it's something, again, to find the balance depending on the winemaker's style that they would like to make will help determine that by doing malolactic or not. Great, so we're halfway through, and now we're going to get into a question about how much pressure is there in a champagne bottle. Is it 30 pounds per square inch? Is it 60 pounds per square inch? Is it 90 pounds per square inch? Or is it 120? No matter what the answer is, that's a lot of pressure. And again, that's why you have to be really, really careful when you open a bottle of champagne, so that cork doesn't hit you or somebody else in the eye. So 30, 60, 90, or 120 pounds per square inch. I see answers all over the place. I mean, somebody's got this one right. Can't say who yet, but Christian will tell us. It's C, 90 pounds per square inch. And just to give you the equivalent of what that means, that's 3 times the amount of pressure in your automobile tire. So if you've ever been driving down the road and you get a flat, it's a big explosion. That's 30 pounds of pressure per square inch in your tire. This is 3 times that amount. So that's a lot of pressure. Again, be careful when you open the cork, please. Okay, question number 12. Go back in history a little bit. Who said, champagne in victory, one deserves it, and in defeat, one needs it? Was it LeBron James? Now, he's won a few times, but he's also lost a lot. Is it Charles de Gaulle, former president of France? Napoleon Bonaparte, obviously somebody very important in French history, or Winston Churchill, who was a great admirer of champagne? So answers for this one, question number 12, coming in. Many of you watched our champagne history webinar last Saturday by Tanya Morningstar Darling. I think she might have covered this. It is indeed Napoleon who said that. So he had good taste. Maybe didn't win all of them. He lost at Waterloo, but other than that, he had a lot to celebrate for the most part. Good, very good. So I can just see by the answers you all are doing really well. Now our question number 13 has to do with what type of champagne is the sweetest? Is it the champagne called demi-sec? Is it doux? Is it extra dry? Or is it sec? Which one of those is the sweetest style of champagne? And back in the 1800s, the most popular type of champagne was the sweetest type. In fact, it had, as we talked about it on Saturday in the webinar, there was like 300 grams of sugar in some of these different sparkling wines, or champagnes, I should say. Okay, and the answer is doux. Doux in French means sweet. And as you can see on the chart to the right, if you are at 50 grams per liter of sugar or more, then you can label it as Doux. And you can see the driest is Brut Nature, which is essentially not adding any sugar whatsoever. So think about it. Back in the 1800s, when they were drinking these sweet champagnes, they were 300 grams of sugar. So that's 6 times the minimum of what you need today to identify it as a Doux. So that's a lot of, that's almost like syrup. In fact, it probably was used as syrup. Great. On to question number 14. Again, a little bit of culture here as far as the names of these bottles that hold large amounts of volume. So what is the name of the champagne bottle that holds the equivalent of 20 bottles or 15 liters? Okay, is it A, Balthazar, B, Methuselah, C, Nebuchadnezzar, or is it D, Salmanzar? So which of those is the correct name for a 15-liter bottle of champagne? And you notice these names have biblical type names. And the reason that they use these is that, at least the best explanation I've been able to find, is that they're giving some connotation of grandeur and importance and greatness. And of course, if you ever have the luxury, or I should say the pleasure, of enjoying a big bottle like a Nebuchadnezzar, which holds 20 bottles, you can then talk about how you probably have a out of spirit experience. And I'm sure it's something that would be quite a joy. So that's what a Nebuchadnezzar is. It's 15 liter. And believe it or not, there are some larger bottles than this. I didn't put it on the chart here, but it gets a little unwieldy when you get to be that size. You need at least a couple people to pour them. All righty. Our question is now coming up on number 15, having to do with grape varieties. Oops, we gave it away. Guess what?
That was a free. That's user error, and my apologies. So
that's okay. Maybe it was my error, but in any case, the grape which is not allowed in Champagne right now currently is Aligoté. The others, now we talked about Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Meunier as being the 3 primary grapes, but these other grapes are available. There's another one as well. But these 3 grapes are being used in minor places. In fact, you might see a little bit more of the answer B, the Arbeine, because this is a variety that used to be used a lot in the past. But nowadays, it's coming back because it is a grape that holds its acidity very well. It wasn't used much in the past because it's a very late ripening variety, obviously not ideal in a cool climate. But if things are indeed warming up and you want to sort of hedge your bets for the future, having a later ripening grape, especially one that holds its acidity, would be a good thing. In fact, there are some producers that are making 100% champagne from the Arbeine grape. Okay, let's see if we can not give away the next one. All right, to make a rosé champagne, a winemaker is allowed to blend red wines and white wines. Is that true or is that false? You're going to make a rosé champagne. True or false? Looks like some good answers coming through here. I don't think we're fooling anybody on this one from what I can see. And the answer is true. Now, what's unusual about this is actually very unusual in the European Union, because if you're in the European Union and if you're making a rosé wine, a still wine, not, or I should even say anything outside of champagne, if you're making a rosé wine, you're not allowed to blend red and white grapes. You must do it by extracting the color from the skin. So this is the only place in Europe where legally you can blend white and red wine to make a rosé. Obviously in the US, we make a rosé wine by blending white and red wines all the time. All right, so less common in Europe. And we're getting down to the end, and since I am a sports nut, I thought we'd throw in a sports question here. Which major sports league has limited 2 bottles of champagne per player during post-game celebrations? Is it the Major League Baseball, National Basketball Association, National Hockey League, or National Football League? So which of those limits only 2 bottles of champagne per player during post-game celebrations? Right now, there's no celebration going on, as you know. None of these folks are even playing. See a few different answers coming in. And you ready to reveal? It is Major League Baseball. So they instituted this, I think it was in 2006, to only have 2 bottles of champagne. Obviously, they don't want to waste a good thing. Makes good sense, right? And hopefully baseball will be playing before too long. Just get the union and the owners together. We need to watch something other than European soccer. Not that that's not good, but I'm a sports nut. I'm getting a little antsy these days. Okay, down to close to the end now. We've got 3 questions yet to go. Question number 18, which of the following champagne producers is matched correctly with their so-called tête de cuvée? So tête de cuvée is the best of the best. It's the top wine made by that producer. So is it matching up Moet and Chandon and Le Grand Dame? Is it Piper Heidsieck and Rare? Is it Paul Roger and Cristal? Or is it Taittinger and Cuvée Louise? So which one of those is the correct answer? I'm going to guess there's some people are getting 100% on these answers today. They are doing really well. And it is indeed Piper Heidsieck Rare is the correct. Piper and Rare is their tête de cuvée, as you can see in the label there. A lovely wine, by the way. And most of these wines are very rare. They're not only produced in smaller quantities, but they tend to be made maybe instead of 3 or 4 years out of 10, like a vintage, maybe they're made 2 or 3 years, depending on how good quality they have. And they're aged much longer, typically on the dead yeast cells, maybe 5 to 7 years on average to really produce a rich, complex autolytic character. All right, so I see a number of you got that correct. Good job. Alrighty, next, a recording artist. Which recording artist recorded a song called Pink Champagne? Is it Ariana Grande? Is it Frank Sinatra? Is it Pink? Or is it Stevie Wonder? And I have to confess, I did not know this before I put the questions together. I was searching for some fun questions to put together, and you always learn something, and I did learn something here. Okay, questions coming in from the audience, or answers, I should say. I can see a few people think it's good old Frank Sinatra. I'm sure he drank a lot of pink champagne. And it is Ariana Grande. It is Pink Champagne, and there she is with her cover. I actually never heard the song, so I'll have to listen to it and maybe drink some pink champagne while I'm doing so. All righty, so we're down to the last question, and one of my favorite sports of all time, which is still happening, I hope, is the Tour de France. And that happens typically in July, so it's been postponed this year to start in August. And which champagne producer is the official sponsor of the Tour de France? Is it Castelnau? Is it Charles Heidsieck? Is it Jacquard? Or Louis Roederer? So which of those 4 champagne producers is the official sponsor of the Tour de France? One of the most exciting sports events of the year, in my humble opinion. Okay, I see a few coming in with, this is probably the trickiest question because I had to look this one up myself. But I do know they have sponsors, especially at the end. As you can see here, where Chris Froome won a couple years ago. And the answer is Castelnau. They just last year signed a 3-year contract. So this year, I believe, will be their 2nd year of a 3-year contract sponsoring the Tour de France. And prior to Castelnau, it was actually, the sponsorship was held by Jacquard. So there we are. Maybe time to buy some champagne, watch the Tour de France, enjoy whatever you're doing. Thank you for joining, and I hope you were able to get a good number of those questions correct. And if not, have a little more champagne, you'll feel better. So over to you, Christian.
Great. So you'll also want to put these two dates on your calendar that we have coming up: a free webinar on champagne with Peter right here, and it's mastering champagne styles. So you'll get a deep dive into the different champagne styles from a master of wine, Peter Marks. And those two webinar dates are Tuesday, June 30th at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and then again, same webinar on July 17th, and that one at 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So make sure and join us for that. I'm going to go ahead and throw that link.
Also, Christian,
Yep.
just to mention that the webinar will have a kit associated with it if people hope to. It looks like I'm freezing up.
No, you're good.
Am I
You're
freezing
good.
up?
No,
Okay.
you're good.
I'm sorry. So people may want to purchase the kit, which I think if you go to our registration page, there should be a link, or will be a link for you to purchase 3 bottles of champagne. One is from a grower, one is from a negotiant, and one is from a cooperative. And I'll be tasting those during the webinar if you'd like to join in.
Great. So they'll, as Peter mentioned, wines to go along with a webinar, free webinar. And then the last thing we should mention is the Champagne course. That is a free course that is being put on by the Champagne Bureau. And it's the Champagne MOOC, so MOOC. The link will be provided to you as well when you sign up for the webinar. On the confirmation page, there's a link there to sign up for that course. Really great course if you want to dive a little bit deeper into the wines of Champagne. So you have the trivia here, the 2 webinars, the course. We're going to have a lot of champagne experts out there. Plus the contest, I should mention. There is a contest associated as well. So many reasons to join us. Thanks,
Yes.
Peter.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
See
Hope
you
to see you
soon.
at the webinar coming up.
Yeah,
Cheers.
stay healthy, stay well, be kind, and drink well as well. Cheers.